G'day, blokes and Sheilas. If you're listening to this podcast, then you're probably down and out looking for some Ava to smash. Welcome to the Avocast, where we smash all types of Ava. We go for guac, we go for smashed Ava on toast, we go for fucking everything! Except open borders, of course. And if you're some kind of refo cunt trying to find fucking salvage in this country, then get fucked, we're full.
Idiot.
Horrible. That's 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 horrible.
That's a great idea.
Okay, I'm a hippie. I'm naked because I smoked all my clothes.
Tonight you will be dining on filet of zero.
Oh, you're not drinking, are you?
Yeah, fucking hell. I've already had like 3 Guinness. About to
Am I the
go
only
to the fourth.
sober one here?
No, I'm sober.
I'm
Probably. You
We should
can
be
lead,
running this
like...
shit.
But I don't
Yeah.
know, you're like a fucking kid. Of course you're sober.
yeah.
Hey,
He's
hey,
a fucking
hey.
kid.
I may or may not be, but I am. Because I'm a
may or may
good
not
boy.
be, but I am.
I'm a good Christian boy.
Yeah. 5 minutes of Cooper just going,
What's
fucking filthy avo.
Avocado! We're fucking full!
Fucking
It's our
hell.
fucking land, can't get the fuck off. Unless you got some fucking avos with you. Oi, mate, give us your avos.
By the way, Jess Southern is rather shit.
Yeah,
I know,
agreed.
It's a meme, but okay.
Same with the
You guys so
Natalia.
sober as
Natalia is pretty shit too.
Jess has
Hey,
got
guys.
an amazing body, but her face is kind of weird.
Oh, her face is alright, but like in those pictures that you recently posted, she looks like shit.
Yeah, she's
kind of look. She
druggo.
looks,
She lost like a lot of weight.
she's like a modded Oblivion character, not a base Oblivion character, but like a modded one.
Shut the
Some-
fuck up, Revy, you nerd.
Someone made some efforts to try and make it look good, but it still looks like shit.
Revy, stop being a fucking nerd. No one cares about that video game bullshit.
Look,
What version are you up to?
I'll fight you.
What's
I'll fight you.
Oblivion? I've only ever
How
played
tall are you,
Skyrim.
Revy?
Not. Shut up.
How tall are you, Revy?
I'm not a man. Like, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm
I'm-
fucking 5'8", I'll smash you, cunt.
Under 6'3".
I don't.
You're a manlet.
Fuck
Everyone's
off,
a man
you.
with
Come on,
three
Remy, you're
eyes and
doxing us
fucking
till we say how
fur.
tall you are, dude.
Look, I'm 6'7", all right.
Alright, fucking Revy,
Wait,
I'll
dude,
just
no,
spear tackle
Revy,
you.
We're talking about your height, not your fucking dick size, you degenerate.
Yeah, we don't want to hear about the foreskin size, mate.
Look, it's part and parcel of Revy. If
I
you
don't
want to
think-
deal with Revy, you're gonna have to deal with the massive foreskin.
Man, we've had enough fucking parachuting tales, like... Holy shit, dude.
Look, my life is like one of those serial novellas. Amazing feats of agility every day.
So shit.
No, shut up.
So shit.
Look, if you keep interrupting me, I'll strangle
Nah,
you
fuck
with
you,
my
shit.
massive,
You
uncircumcised
You
foreskin.
find me on the north side, and you can try and strangle me with your fucking foreskin, cunt.
I'll look for the tiny cunt who's loud and fucking
Look for
retarded.
the abo sleeping on the side of the road.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
not narrow.
I've already doxed you, mate.
Why?
I've got that picture from your Facebook.
Outside, bah.
Well, what am I wearing on my Facebook?
You got half a Toyota Yaris hanging out your nose because you're fucking
Nah.
sniffing up that E E10.
Nah. E10 shit. You gotta go from methane,
It's,
mate.
you're the guy with the small chin.
Yeah, I got a small chin, but like my face kind of fits it.
Yeah, you're streamlined.
Yeah,
For
streamlined.
easy escapes when big prey come looking.
No, it's like I can reach peak velocity and tackle tall shit cunts. It's like fucking Oz comes near me. Bam, he's on the ground.
It's so
Revy
he can
comes
run
mini.
faster when he can fucking...
Bam, he's down.
I wouldn't
he's
see you
faced
coming,
with
though.
fucking
That's the
alpha
thing.
Shut the
males.
fuck up, Oz.
Mate, I always had a trigger. Shit,
So are we actually gonna stop shit posting and like talk about something meaningful?
No, this is good.
or-
This is good content. I mean,
This is
this,
I
the
don't
first
think this
content.
is good content.
is content you'd put behind a paywall, secure, safe. Only
Yeah.
the intelligent.
There are two paywalls. There's the Vagina Bob paywall, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
there's the regular paywall, and then you get to the Avocast.
You need at least
Yeah.
5 for jeans and 7 bobs.
And then
Yeah,
you get
yeah,
into
yeah.
the lowest
Yeah,
tier.
you know, if you donate five vagines,
you get to be on the Avocast.
Yeah, that's how.
I
it
think
works.
I'm getting
And also,
worse, honestly.
when you get behind the paywall, you're only at the lowest level of the Avo pyramid, and you have to
Yeah,
get
you got to
10
work
other
your way up
people.
the ranks. You got to
Gotta
keep
get
selling
10
more
other
for jeans
people.
and bobs.
Yeah.
You got to get them out there.
Get 10
Silly.
other people,
Silly.
preferably Sheila's, behind the paywall.
Revy, I just looked at that picture you sent me and I noticed that Cooper's bottles in it now.
Yeah, that was the whole point. Fucking hell, you dick.
Also, Revy, you touch my fucking crayons, I'll break your throat.
Yeah, break his throat? What are you? How you gonna break his
Oh,
throat?
sorry. I'll fucking poke out his eyes, even though that's retarded to say.
Oh, Jesus Christ, we got
I don't
another
have
top
eyes.
copper in the chat.
Oh no. It's retarded.
It's retarded. It's such a bitch move, kicking them in the groin.
Look at these
Fuck
fucking
off, you
fucking
wanker.
stoners, lol. Smoking weed is
Lol,
gay.
lol, E,
Degenerate
lol,
lols.
E. You
Drugs
gotta
are
add
degenerate,
the
guys.
E to it.
The alt-right's full of druggos.
Cut that shit out and then, we'll talk about the fucking Port Arthur Holocaust.
And now for our feature presentation.
Fucking
How about
holy
that
shit.
Port Arthur, eh? I was watching a doco and they're talking about how Murdoch owned most of the papers pushing the meme of the retard being the shooter.
Well, of course.
And
he
they were saying...
he runs Fairfax. So
Well,
he
yeah, no,
controls
he
almost
owned
everything.
most of the papers in Tasmania, though. And then he owns most of the news companies as well.
And now he owns most of the news companies internationally, which is kind of fucked.
Well, the thing is, he was pushing they were pushing so hard for Bryant to be the shooter when a bunch of people describe the shooter as wearing a weird color of green and having a pockmarked face, as in having lots of pimples.
Yeah, I know what pockmark is, mate.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I was just clearing that up. What do you actually know about the Port Arthur shooting, Revy? Because you were a Port Arthur truther, right?
Yeah.
So what do you know about?
I'm not really going off. I'm just going off the sort of the dot points of the event. Like
Yeah,
none
we'll
of it
just go
adds
off
up.
that.
Like I think for most people it seems kind of legit, but they have very limited knowledge of what it would take to do such a thing.
Yeah.
Like this wasn't some mud slime running in there with an AK just spraying everyone down. Like this was a calculated killing, almost an execution. And someone of Bryant's mental capabilities wouldn't be possible of doing something like this.
Well, the thing is, if I can interject for a minute, what really pisses me off about Port Arthur is that the guy murdered a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Yep.
Who in their right? Who? Even if you're a fucking...
Diversity is our strength.
They do it
You
all the
wouldn't
time.
kill a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Like
Not even
point
they
blank
would
like
kill
that.
them.
Not like that. Not point
Yeah.
blank in the
Yeah,
neck.
you
Like
wouldn't
that.
do it. It's just... It's inhuman to do something like that.
Well, I
You
know
have
what
to
the-
be one of the biggest fucking cowards on the earth
Well, they did
to
it in
gun
Spain.
down a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old in front of their fucking mother. What kind of scum are you? What
The
kind
mother's
of
already
subhuman-
dead.
I know, but what
That's
kind of
fucked. Chased her
subhuman
around.
Not only do they
piece
kill
of
the
shit
parents
are
in
you?
front of the kids' eyes, but then they just
Mm.
shoot the kids, and one kid gets to see the other kid get shot. It's a fucking disaster.
Yeah,
No, the
Chasing
smallest
them
kid
down a
hid
tree.
behind a tree and he chased her.
Yeah,
Well,
Behind
it's
the
fucking
tree.
sick.
yeah. What kind of subhuman piece of shit are you if you kill little children? Like, think about that for a minute. How subhuman do you have to be to kill children? To do
Government
anything-
operatives.
Something that is
Well,
incredibly innocent.
Yo, Coop, you know that it's been tied in with the whole fucking Pizzagate conspiracy.
Yeah,
like,
I understand that, but still, to do something to
Yeah, it's
something that's so
fucking sick, mate.
innocent,
like
you have to be subhuman to do that.
The world is a lot more evil than it looks on the surface, for sure.
I like to think of myself as not as black-pilled as everybody else, but when I see people doing awful
no, dude,
shit to
that's-
children, I
that's
just
beyond
think,
deplorable.
I don't think that someone who does something awful to a child should live or die quickly. They should die slowly, and they should understand every moment of their pain and why it's happening to them. They shouldn't be, just a quick bullet to the head. It
You
should
can
be
hang them by
every
their
bone.
thumbs over a building.
It should be every bone in their body broken until they fully understand the trauma that they have inflicted upon the child and the fact that that child will no longer live a normal life. Like I've known people that have had fucked up shit to happen to them as a child. And I think it's just sick. And I'm not talking about, like, you know, them seeing someone die as a child. I'm talking about them being molested or something. Anybody that does anything like that, evil to a child, needs to die in the worst way possible and buried in the most fucking disgusting manner and disrespectful manner possible.
Well, I mean, like, you know, the Romans had a pretty decent solution, which is just fucking crucifixion.
Yeah, I don't think crucifixion's hard enough, though. I don't think we've developed a torture cruel enough to befit the punishment of those that rape children. Like the Romans, when they would disrespect someone, or the ancients when they used to disrespect someone, they'd cut their head off and bury them with the head facing into the arse. I don't think that's good enough. And I genuinely believe in God for the pure reason of that sick fucks like child molesters get sent to hell.
Well, like, absolutely, and I mean, if you've read Inferno, the act in its own would have sent them to, like, the 4th ring of hell, but generally with pedophilia, you end up on the 7th, which is the final ring, because usually you are, you know, betraying someone's trust. When you do that, you're a traitor to them. Like, if it happens, like, say to you, like, you do it to your friend's kids, then you're a traitor to your friend and their children who are putting their trust in them. If it's just a random, like, kid, then, you know, you've betrayed their inherent trust that people are going to respect the sanctity of their, you know, their bodies.
Yeah, I remember they did that whole doco about that fucking pedophile that was like a babysitter, and the parent didn't really give a shit.
No, parents.
And the guy was like patting himself on the back because he didn't rape the kid when he was taking care of it.
Well,
parents that don't give a shit are just as bad as the pedophile, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Have you watched
They
any of the
should
fucking
be
Louis
killed.
Theroux docos about fucking pedos where he's like, oh, they're not actually bad people, they're just misunderstood, like...
No.
No, they're bad people.
They're bad people and they deserve to die.
There are about 4 of them now, where he, like, goes to, like, the, California has a, permanent facility for sex offenders who have gotten out of prison, because they're not allowed to reintegrate. And, yeah, Revy said he just saw it. And he's going through and kind of making, like, a sub-story out of all of their cases and selectively editing it to make it look like they're, you know, people who are just, you know, like, they're so misunderstood, and, like, if people knew better, they wouldn't, like, judge so harshly these like, poor people who are trying to be rehabilitated. Fuck that shit. They should have already been in the gas chambers, mate.
Put it this way. Someone who kills, if someone was capable of killing over 6 million people, I'm not even talking about the Holocaust or anything, anybody that was able to kill, like, someone that's able to single-handedly commit genocide is better in my books than a fucking child molester. Those people
Agreed.
Well, it's funny because they even tried to make it out like Hitler was a fucking pedophile. They said he raped his niece. Which is
I'm not even talking about Hitler, though.
Yeah,
I don't even care about Hitler. It's about the fact that
No, it
these
just
child
reminded me
molesters.
how they use that.
Yeah. It's the fact that these child molesters are still walking and breathing within our communities. These people should not be allowed to live. I don't even have kids and I feel this way. I think it's ridiculous that we should let someone, the corrupter of innocence, the corrupter of what's good in the world, live within our communities. It'd be like letting the Antichrist live.
I got to jump in real quick before we stray too far. You mentioned Louis Theroux and his tribe.
Dude.
Look, I just got to put it out there. You know, it would be kind of funny as a prank if he got hit by a car. I reckon that'd be pretty funny. That'd be a really great prank. And
like, I couldn't complain.
Yeah, let's see if we can make a documentary about that.
No doubt. If he like got pranked into a wheelchair or anything, that'd be pretty funny.
Like, oh shit, he's gonna cover the Monster Jam. This is gonna be really great. And oh shit, there's Gravedigger.
Oh no, another truck of peace.
Ah, fuck.
Dang it, those ethnics every time.
He's gonna say it with his gay fucking Anglo accent.
He's Singaporean.
Okay.
He's from Singapore.
Anglo to
he's
me.
Singaporean with some massive echoes around that.
Yeah, fucking Louis Theroux. Bullshit. Louis
G'day, Emu.
Ecclestein.
Yeah, I just I wanted to say before we like kind of moved off the subject, I had a really close mate for 2 years who he never told me about being, you know, abused as a kid by his uncle. And a few months ago, we were drinking, and he was beyond smashed, like absolutely beyond smashed. And we were just sitting in a park, and I was having a dart, and we were chatting, and he just kind of started crying and telling me all this shit, and I was just like, holy fuck, I don't know how to react. So I just kind of listened and like nodded as he was talking, and like the conversation then kind of deviated away, and we kept going with that night. Next morning he woke up and was like, fuck, I don't remember anything from last night. And I felt bad that he'd told me, and he didn't remember that he had, so I told him. And like the look on his face when he realized that he'd told me that he'd been, you know, like molested by a family member. He can't hang out with me anymore. Like, he can't be around me. It's too much for him. And that's absolutely fucked, because he was like one of my best mates. And I figure like it's pretty fucking relevant. Like, holy fuck, the guy that did that to him needs to fucking like burn very fucking slowly. It just like, it's one of those really fucked things that can ruin a person's life. And like anyone that does that to someone, like willingly perpetrates that kind of fucking shit against someone, like, is completely irredeemable in my fucking eyes. But yeah, that's my 2 cents, mate.
If I can just interject for a minute, I once read a book where they talked about it. It was a Dennis Lehane book, and they talked about these serial killers and how for a long time they stopped killing regular people and they started killing children. And when they found out one of them was killing children, they started burning him, and they started at the ankles and worked their way up while this dude was tied to a chair. So the whole time he was strapped to that chair, he would have been screaming his head off in agony, in utter agony. And I don't even think that's fair enough for for someone that sick, for the ultimate corrupter of innocence.
You hear about these really extreme tortures that used to take place where they would, I don't know, they do the most brutal things to you, but they keep you awake using salt and shit like that on your wounds until your mind split in half and you literally had a second personality.
Yeah, like
they talked about those like Russian experiments where they used to do that specifically for espionage, so that people wouldn't remember things from their other personality. So they tortured them to the point where they cannot take it anymore. So their mind just has to split itself literally.
That's exactly
so that
what
they
MK
can.
Ultra is, dude.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what MK Ultra is.
Shit like that. Like that's what they should do to those cunts.
There's no punishment on heaven or earth good enough or severe enough for a fucking pedophile, man.
Yeah, fucking oath, Emu. G'day, mate. I reckon.
Sorry,
like,
right?
Holy shit. We've kind of strayed into a really fucking dark area for the first.
Yeah, I couldn't really join in that because
So
not really. Sorry.
I'm thinking like Oz fucking has just Southern been on to much lately, or is she still just being like a degenerate fucking cocking you for a manlet with a lisp? Lispy manlet.
Just to pick that up. She's been at a music festival. It's been a very good weekend. I'm sure she messaged me.
Yeah. Rusty, if we can make a cut here and go back to like Port Arthur.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, so with Port Arthur, I was watching a couple of documentaries, and they one documentary in particular brought up the fact that Murdoch owned a lot of the the papers that were pushing the meme that Bryant was the killer. And okay, I'll just clarify my position real quick. I'm open to the idea that Bryant was the killer because, well, I watched a lot of the police tapes and the way he reacts isn't normal. It's
He's
not.
crazy, the shit ass rat.
Yeah, I know, but it's not the reaction that you get from a person that isn't guilty. And like you said, Amy, you said to us in the chat a little while ago that you've seen challenged, mentally challenged people's react that way to certain things. If you could just hit on that real quick.
My brother-in-law's got some fairly severe disabilities, and he's the most beautiful fucking bloke you'd ever meet. He'd give you the fucking shirt off his back if you asked for it. And I've done some volunteering with some of the groups he goes out with. They take him out the footy and shit, and they go take him 10-pin bowling and fishing and teach him some life skills. And they'll get into a Barney sort of thing, and some of these blokes are barely capable of tying their own shoes. They're just mentally incapacitated completely. And, something will go missing and one of them will accuse something, and there's absolutely no way this let's say it's a bloke this time. No way this guy could have done it. He wasn't there, or he was directly in your line of sight and went missing. But because in his head he'll go, oh shit, it's a spot for attention. He'll sit up and, oh yeah, I did it. It was great. I did it because you did this to me. And you look at him and think, mate, you didn't. You can't have done it. You were here the whole time with me. Shut up. But in their head, they've decided, nope, I've done this. I'm going to take the credit for it. And that's the end of it. And it just looking at Bryant's police videos, it looks to me like someone who has had the idea in his head that it'd be fun is the wrong word to do, but the excitement of being a killer, the excitement of going through the sort of trial would appeal to that sort of, I suppose, disturbed personality. It's the chance to be infamous, to live forever.
I think that's especially true because last year, I think when it was the 20th anniversary, I watched the story that they ran on TV at the time, and the interviews that they showed that had apparently never been shown before showed things exactly like that. When they accused him, he was excited, and he did express his excitement to be going public with it. And even when they talked about his lawyer and they talked to him, they talked about how he was excited to do it and how he was finally being recognized for something or other. It was kind of a bit off, and the way he acted wasn't really, to me, acting as if he acknowledged what he was doing, but he was just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Emu, I have a mate who sounds exactly like your brother. Like, I lived with him for a few months because his basically his carer is one of my best mates. And like you'll talk to him and you'll mention that you did something, and he'll kind of register the like whatever you did as a data point. And like 2 days later, he'll tell you that he was out doing that thing, and he kind of creates these narratives in his head from like he when he was about 20s, in his like late 40s now, when he was about 20, he got into a motorbike accident. A truck pushed him off the road, so he has like metal plates all the way down the left side of his body and like severe brain damage. But like you tell him like stories or anything, and he sort of remembers the story, but it's twisted in a way where his brain only registers it as like he actually lived it. Like he thinks that he's
exactly.
Yeah. And
the details don't match up when they try to tell you the story back. When they try and explain it to you, it can't possibly make sense.
Like you can explain, like say, the Portsmouth Arthur shooting to him, and he would have probably said like, oh yeah, I did that. Like it was a great time, and he won't fully register what you're actually saying to him. It'll just kind of register as like, this is an activity that other person does. This is a way you can interact with this person. Yeah.
So
exactly.
I just realised we didn't really give any context what Port Arthur was, in case anybody isn't from Australia or is from Australia and doesn't know what it was. It was It was a shooting in which a guy, Martin Bryant, went down with an AR-15
Allegedly.
variant. Well, yeah, allegedly went down with an AR-15 variant, a shotgun, and a L1A1 battle rifle, aka the FN FAL, and shot 35 people and injured a whole bunch more.
Yeah, it was an instigator for the removal of gun rights in Australia.
A lot of the killings took place at a very close range. For the first few, he managed to shoot them at pretty much point blank range with his AR-15. He first started off at a cafe at a historic site, and then moved into the car park and into the gift store, and then pretty much went on a rampage, gunning down as many people as he could. During the shooting, he managed to kill a woman who took her children down to the site. Her children were aged, I think, 3 and 5. And in the end, the perpetrator, Martin Bryant, was caught after fleeing a house he had set on fire. During a siege with the police, the house was set on fire, possibly by the police, possibly by him. It isn't exactly known to the public, but regardless of that, he is now in jail and is now serving out a life sentence. He during a lot of the interviews he's had, a lot of the tapes have been destroyed at the request of the warden of the prison, because Bryant has acted in such a way that indicates that he wants to be famous. The consequences of this mass shooting were that gun rights in Australia were largely restricted by John Howard, who was the Prime Minister at the time. That's about all.
Yeah, did we say the year?
We didn't.
The day?
Was it 1996?
April 1996. Okay.
April 1996. So this all happened within a day. Well, 2 days, I guess. He rocked up to the cafe and decided to start shooting. If we can move into a bit more of the tinfoil hat side of things, as opposed to the regular narrative, there was a lot of evidence to suggest that he wasn't actually the killer. Like, some people said that the killer had a lot of pimples on his face, and the killer was firing from the hip with well, from what I read on the Wikipedia article, the gun had a sight on it.
And from what I've read, they were doing tactical reloads where they were counting the rounds that they'd fired and were reloading while the last round was still in the chamber. And that's, not something that every pleb can do. That's something that
firing from the hip to begin with is incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult to do.
Like, I've tried to do that once, and that was bloody ridiculous. Like,
firing at iron sights are hard enough.
I was firing at a target from 20 meters away, and I couldn't do it.
Well, no, you got to remember this guy was in a cafe at point blank range. Also, something interesting is, for all those that don't really know anything about guns are very loud, and if you fire them indoors without protection for your ears, you're most likely going to go deaf. And if you're firing a high caliber rifle, you're most likely going to be using double layers of protection.
The noise from a gunshot of a standard, say, Winchester rifle or something is about 1.5 times the level that it takes for you to get noise-induced hearing loss in 1 second.
And so, something to add to that is the rifles he was using, the AR-15, which uses the 5.56.
Which is the classic for trying to push gun control, is these quote unquote.
Yeah, 5.56 is like the
rifles,
common assault. Yeah,
which
but
is
one thing to note.
Assault rifles don't exist.
Yeah, is that the FN FAL, the L1A1, uses the 7.62 by 5.1 NATO round, which is approximately, I'm pretty sure that's a 308.
It's 308. Yep.
Yeah, 308 is quite a heavy round and quite loud. It's a
I
very
used to fire
powerful
them when
round.
I was
If
a
you were
kid.
to fire that without proper protection or, in a decent open environment, you would be permanently deaf or at least
Even
have
in an open
serious
environment,
hearing
doesn't
damage.
matter, mate.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
get
Oh
most
yeah,
of just
even in a
hearing
field,
loss.
you still get ear damage.
You'll,
So
if
you'll
I can-
lose about like 3,000 decibels of your hearing range from the high end.
Yes. So if you're going from firing in a small enclosed space and going through multiple magazines, and then moving over to a heavier, louder round immediately after, I mean, Bryant shouldn't be able to hear a damn thing.
Well, the thing is, Revy and Rusty, he wasn't immediately swapping through the weapons. He had, well, from what I understand from the Wikipedia
He had
article,
magazines, didn't he, as well?
yeah, he had magazines on him, and he fired a number of shots before actually swapping to the L1A1. When he swapped to the L1A1, I assume he went back inside to the cafe where he started the shooting, which is odd because if we can put our minds in the mind of the I know that's pretty impossible, but say you're going to commit these acts, which I know none of us would, but we're going to commit these acts. Why would you not have your secondary, on your shoulder? And to clarify, the weapon he was using, it was an SP. It was a Colt AR-15 SP1 carbine 223, and for those that don't know, 223 is
5.56.
5.56 standard NATO.
And plus, I mean, even if there was a gap in between the swapping of calibers, essentially, this isn't something that needs to be done immediately after. I mean, it can take even between hours of firing weapons without ear protection. It's sort of like a compounding damage over time. It's not like one and done. I mean, if you just keep hammering your eardrums over and over again, it's just going to keep compounding the damage to them.
Well, an interesting point that was raised by some other people in this channel, I think it was Jazz who linked this picture to me. The shooter at the time was firing right-handed and was, like you said, firing from the hip and using tactical reloads, while Bryant was left-handed and never practiced from the hip, according to what he says.
I've read. Sorry to jump in. I read that some people who went to the ranges that Bryant went to, like gun ranges, noted that he was incredibly shit at shooting. Like he couldn't hit the wide side of a barn, essentially.
I also
I read the same
that-
thing. He was sorry.
This portion of our show has been brought to you by
Damn, buy it.
We now return to your regular programming.
I also read somewhere else. I can't even the exact source. I'll have to find it again and put it in the chat. He was such a bad shot. He was asked to leave the gun club because he was putting others at risk just aiming at a target.
Yeah, I read that too. I really got to try and find it.
What's the bet that his favorite book is Catcher in the Rye?
Well, that's the thing that a guy talked to me about. He said that what he was speaking about before he actually went into the shooting, which was he was mentioning something about WASPs, which is a derogatory term for white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So like Seppos and shit. He was talking shit about Seppos. He goes, there's a lot of WASPs around and not many gooks or something, not many Japs or something like that. And so I think he was talking shit about that. But I think RW was cut off earlier, and I think he'd like to add to it. What have you got to say?
Well, I
RW?
know that in the reports that I saw, this probably isn't too pertinent at all, but they did mention how he killed some foreigners, and I don't remember what else they said about it, but he killed some Chinese people that were sitting in the cafe.
Yeah.
And I also heard that then, like, obviously not through the media itself, but the idea that there would have been multiple shooters. Because at the time, I remember hearing something about him shooting someone and shoving them in the trunk or something.
He shoved someone in the trunk, and then I believe he lit the car on fire. I wasn't around at the time. I think Emu, who probably heard it on the news at the time, would have a better perspective on these events than I would. What have you got to say about that?
I was 12, mate. I was in the back of the car. I remember stopping at a service station on the way to Kyogle and hearing it on the news and sitting there thinking, Jesus, what the hell is wrong with these people? And even my old boy sitting there saying, well, as soon as the cops find him, they're going to put him down anyway. So, justice will eventually be served. And I remember even my old man, who is as leftist as they come, guns about him, okay, being amazed when they finally arrested Brian that they considered him such a threat that they called out a tactical team, but they took him alive. Now, you look at Australian police, they're typically fairly gun happy, and they were, especially back in the day when we had firearms. What blew us away was that he came so peacefully. If you've committed a crime like that, you know what's going to happen. You know you're going down. And it didn't make sense that he came so quietly.
Well, yeah, that's especially weird because back in the, I think, Emu, do you remember the Welsh street shootings?
Yeah.
When was that?
Oh, Christ, now you're getting back towards my childhood, mate.
Well, I think it was like the 70s or 80s. Anyway, so the cops instigated a war between a rival gang by basically walking up and blowing the head off of a gangster at point blank range with a shotgun. So the bank robbery squad, who in I think it was New South Wales or Victoria, were especially gung ho and basically went up to this guy and shot him in the head. Considering that, it's especially odd that a special operations group from Victoria, and Victoria was especially riddled with crime at that period of time, were not at all willing to gun down the man.
Sorry.
Okay, Revi.
Well, wasn't there? I vaguely remember reading somewhere that there was an American paramedic convention in town the day it happened, and they were the first responders, not the local police. I vaguely remember reading something about that.
I don't remember reading anything about that, but I'll take your word on it. I remember that before that, before any of the shootings happened, he's supposed to have tied up a bunch of people in a information center.
It's amazing he got as far as he did without any sort of immediate response, to be honest. I mean, he was moving around the place and...
Yeah. The fact that he was able to shoot... what's even more interesting, if I can avoid what I was trying to elaborate earlier on, is that a lot of the people actually suffered bone fragment injuries. And in the documentary I watched, they supposed that there was a second shooter called, I think it was Rick. If we ever set up a description for this podcast, I'll link it in that. But and it appeared that a second shooter was calling the shots, and Bryant was just kind of following along, like going through the motions kind of thing. According to the Wikipedia article I read, Bryant hooned around the car park, shooting out of his window using an L1A1 battle rifle and doing a lot of stuff and waving at the people that he was shooting at, which is very odd.
Wait, so he was firing his L1A1 out of a car while driving it?
Yeah, out of a car while driving.
Nah.
Yeah, I know.
That's nah.
Yeah. Well,
even fucking trained people can barely handle 308. It's a hot cartridge. You wouldn't be able to do it while driving.
Well, if I
you
can
would be deaf.
if I can just talk about that real quick,
Yeah, sure.
a lot of the stuff on the Wikipedia article is needing to be verified. So from the documentary, I think I'm going to use the documentary that I only watched half of as my main thing. They were talking about how one particularly interesting fact is while the shooting was going on in Emu, you might remember this, Bryant was almost immediately being named as the shooter. Do you remember anything like that, Emu?
It was almost that evening or the next day. Before there had been an investigation. It was I, being a kid, I couldn't tell you the exact newspapers that were in it or whether Murdoch owned them or not, but I can definitely confirm that even as a kid, I remember seeing John Howard under Houston when he tried to bring in the GST and it cost Houston his career. Even then, John Howard was pushing for severe gun restriction.
Yeah, well, an interesting fact about the them pushing that it was Bryant was that most of the papers at the time that were pushing it were actually owned by Rupert Murdoch.
Who's a known globalist.
For those that don't know, Rupert Murdoch owns most of the media in Australia. He owns almost all of the newspapers.
Or has a large share.
Yeah.
Also in Sky News, he also owns part of that.
Mm.
He's trying to merge stuff together, trying to get a bigger share of the media.
Yeah, and it was funny. A lot of the independent, well, not independent, but the non-Murdoch owned newspapers in Tasmania at the time weren't exactly talking about Bryant. And the documentary raised the point that it might have influenced people's decisions. It might have destroyed any chance of a free trial for Bryant. Oz, have you researched anything about this, or?
No, it's just a strange thing. Like the whole overall thing, they never established a motive, really. Like most cases, they're like, there's videos and stuff. This one, he just wakes up one day with his next.
He was just crazy. Nothing else to do. We just planned it.
Yeah, there was no manifesto, which goes against the whole narrative that he was doing it for attention. If he was doing that, he probably would have had a manifesto of some sort.
Well, if we can just touch on that real quick. According to the Wikipedia article I read, he woke up at 8 o'clock. And this guy, and that's particularly odd for this guy, considering he was a NEET, which
he never did anything.
Yeah, a NEET and a retard, if I can be so slanderous. So it was particularly odd for this man to wake up at this time and for his girlfriend to be kicked out of the house at this time. So, so a NEET, for those that don't know, is not in education or training. So basically someone who's unemployed and just kind of sits on the dole.
Plays video games and watches anime.
Yeah, like Dory. Gotta lighten up the topic somehow, hey?
When in doubt, add Dory.
Even Brian had a girlfriend. God.
Yeah. Well, Brian had a girlfriend and she was kicked out at an unusual time. And so, another unusual
I heard
thing
that
is,
he consulted her about it. She was
can
interviewed.
you elaborate on that?
Well, she was interviewed on the ACA thing that I was watching last time, and she was talking about how she went. I think she went like clothes shop, very uninterested and kind of closed off. But he also talked about randomly how he wanted to just shoot people. Yeah, and how he just decided, like one day apparently he said he was going to go fishing or something.
Yeah,
and then he was actually going to buy guns and go to the gun range or whatever. If my memory serves me right, I know that they did talk about that, and she did mention going out with him and him being very kind of closed off more than usual.
Well, okay. Another interesting fact that was raised by the documentary was that Bryant lived near these two, like a family of children, and they described him as being very immature but harmless. and they talked about how they came over one day to play with him, and they go, "Oh, you got a CD player?" And he basically said, "Yeah, you guys can have these CD players of mine. No questions asked. You guys can have this. You're cool. You have this." Which goes a lot against the character portrayed in the shooting as a
Yeah.
a madman.
I'm gonna add something to that. Sorry.
Go
on the documentary I watched as well, the police person that was on the phone with him said he sounded like a teenager. Like he's actually about, how old is he? About 28 at the time.
I think he was about 20 something at the time.
Yeah, and he's still talking like a teenager, so he's been stunted somehow.
Well, as well as that, in the Port Arthur Trutham documentary that I watched, they were talking about how before he went out on the shooting, he fixed a bunch of American girls' car and bought pot off of them. And Bryant was not known as a pot smoker or anything like that, which is extremely interesting, considering that he's never smoked pot before. But the day that he decides to, he goes on a shooting. He goes on a killing spree.
Never inject pot.
Yeah, basically.
One pot and you just shoot up all of Port Arthur.
Yeah, the one thing I remember primarily from it was even my grandfather, who, till the day I die, I'll sing the praises of. He was sitting there saying, it's completely possible that Bryant was involved in it, but he certainly didn't believe that he had the IQ or the drive to be the mastermind behind it.
Well, yeah, Bryant was always described as kind of an idiot and very slow.
Easily led.
Yeah, easily led along. That's where I'm gonna go back to the point about him maybe not actually being the shooter and maybe him being led by another person. And the fact that in the documentaries that I watched and in the Wikipedia article that I read, a lot of the information is very conflicting. Like in the Wikipedia article, it talked about how he had a sight on his gun, which doesn't really make sense, because if you're going into a very close quarters situation and you're going to be hip firing, you wouldn't have a sight on the end of your gun.
Do you know what side it was?
I do not.
All right, I'll try and find out.
Yeah, if you could quickly try and find out. But for the moment, we'll assume that it's like a decent site that allows you to see a lot easier. So maybe like a hunting, not a hunting scope, but kind of like a half hunting scope type site.
So that brings into question as well, because I grew up around guns, and was taught from a very young age the importance of being extremely safe and sensible around them. If you've got a sight on your gun, you've got that gun zeroed in to at least some distance. That's going to affect how you're shooting at, especially from the hip, because that gun's going to be zeroed in to say you've got an 800 meter scope. That gun's going to be zeroed in between 750 to 800 meters. If you're shooting at something at a much closer range, you're going to need to have dot rays. Otherwise, you're going to be completely off target. And if you're making headshots, that makes things incredibly challenging and difficult.
Well,
that needs someone with extreme training.
Okay, Amy, if I can interject. The thing is that the barrel was described in the Wikipedia article being 2 to 3 inches away from the heads of victims at certain points. And the fact that a lot of these people were hit with bone fragments raises the questions as to how the bullet actually entered them, which is quite interesting. And there's a lot of interesting shit that's raised during Port Arthur. Like in the documentary I watched, they talked about, if we can go back to the standoff between him and the police, which was the very end of his thing, where he took a bunch of hostages and hid out in I think it was the Seaside Hotel. Can I have someone confirm that for me? the seaside something.
I think that was it. Yeah.
Okay. So he hid out in this hotel, basically, and took at least 3 prisoners with him. And then in one of the documentaries he watched, he is described as setting fire to that hotel for no known apparent reasons. When in another one I watched, it was the police that set fire to it with a flare for some reason. And there is actually footage from the crime scene during it that I think a lot of people discount, mainly because it shows absolutely nothing. And then there's also pictures of the aftermath of the crime scene. And like Revy once said, the aftermath doesn't really matter. It can be, with the aftermath, you can shape it to be whatever you want. If you could elaborate on that, Revy.
Yeah, I was just the approach I was taking with that is that you can take any sort of tragic scene and then put your spin on it. What really matters is, if we had footage of it actually happening, then you could say 100% for sure what happened. But when you're only dealing with the evidence after the fact, then you have to fill in the gaps, and that's when people can slip their narratives in. And also, I'm looking at an image here of the Colt SP1 that he supposedly used, and the optic on it. Now, just for background information for everyone listening at home, I'm not a gun owner, because fuck, there's no point. But in Australia, just make that clear. But I do know some things about guns. This looks like a magnified optic. This doesn't look like a red dot or any sort of assisted sort of post sight or anything like that. This looks like it's magnified. So unless it was the Colt used outside, or was the L1A1 used outside?
I believe he went back into the cafe to retrieve his secondary weapon, which was the L1A1,
and then he went back
and
outside.
then continued firing. But it's strange because it talks about how he in the Wikipedia article I'm going off, he may have used the SP1. It's not very clear. It needs a lot of clarification and verification.
Well, the ballistics photo I'm looking at here, at the scene, it was in ashes. So I'm assuming he was using it when he was at the hotel.
Well, yeah. An interesting point I can bring up about the hotel is that on the Wikipedia article, it is believed that there was possibly a second man on a roof not far away, and possibly antagonizing the police by firing shots at them. But I believe Bryant, when he escaped the main scene, went on a shooting spree down the road, swapping cars and setting some on fire as he went along.
He didn't shoot any police though, which is strange. Like he didn't have a fire or anything.
Yeah, or is the strange?
Just I don't know. He must have run out of bullets or something.
Or is the strange thing is that when he actually got to the siege, which is the last bit of it where people had dobbed him in at the Fox and Hound.
Yeah, the hostages were in there, I think.
The hostages were in there, and he was he apparently had, I think it was 2 police officers pinned down in a ditch. So they had to call on the SOG, the Special Operations Group, for those that don't know, to kind of, I don't know, react to the situation in a different manner, maybe by laying down suppressive fire. But
Waco stuff.
Waco is a different thing. We ought to get into that on a different episode. But the thing is that we should probably mention that not many people understand why he set fire to the building and why he ran out of the building on fire. But
Well,
from
can we just jump in with a second, just clarify that when the building was set alight, whether by himself or the police, were the hostages still inside the building?
I believe the hostages were still inside the building, although it's not very clear.
Okay.
Were they killed first or burnt alive?
I'm not sure.
Or they escaped?
I'm not sure.
I think they were dead, actually, yeah. So,
From what I read, there was something talking about how he killed people before he went to the site and shot a bunch of people up. And then when he was at the secondary site, the hotel, he had a bunch of people set up there. He had at least 3 hostages set there, and I think he set fire to the building while they were in there, which is very interesting because
I was just adding in on the documentary I watched, the ABC one. The police person that was on the phone also said when he was on the phone to them, they couldn't hear anyone in the background because when they call, they're always trying to see what's going on around them, they could hear anything, but it was dead silent besides Bryant.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. I watched in the documentary the kind of blue pill documentary that they were talking about how Bryant, they couldn't hear anything, and they were trying to use the hostage negotiation as a way of hearing if anybody else was inside. I think Emu might know a little bit about this, so I'll let him go ahead.
To be honest, I must admit I haven't done as much research as you. I was going to look this evening, but I've had a bit of a sneaky kip. I remember that there was a hostage situation. I don't remember, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head if there were casualties there, but I do remember there being at the time the question whether the police had set fire to the building to flush him out, which again raised the question: if there was known hostages in there, why do you put the hostages at risk? If the police are merely to flush him out.
Okay, if I can...
I found an interesting source about this just now.
Okay, go ahead.
It's from the Herald Sun. It's talking about the operations group that claimed they could have had a chance to shoot him the minute the house burned down. It's kind of looks like a chat log of sorts of different officers talking about the experience when he was having the hostage situation being done. It's quite long though, so I'll just link it, and that might provide more insight.
From what I read, from what I gathered from the doco I half watched, was that the police fired a flare into his building. The police apparently fired a flare into his building, which set fire to it, and left him running out. And the funny thing is that about the whole shooting is there's a bunch of pictures of Bryant, but there's no actual real confirmation that he did it.
Yeah, at the scene.
Yeah. There's no on the scene footage of him shooting people. Okay,
if you set a house on fire from the inside, why would you get yourself burnt if you're naturally you wouldn't just walk into a fire you're standing next to if you're in an open house? How's he
behind the police tapes? Is his skin so unburnt and unmarked?
Well, yeah, surely after being all burnt up, after running out of a building on fire. I knew a girl who got all burnt up in a boat fire, I think it was, and she, to this day, is still burnt up, and she's had a whole bunch of plastic surgery. She still looks all fugly and burnt up. That's just the point, though.
At the very least, he would have blisters.
Yeah, and in the police interviews, he's got nothing wrong with his face, nothing wrong with his hair or anything. And it really makes you wonder, did he actually do it? Because he was apparently so low IQ that he couldn't sign his name. He
Wait a minute. I found something.
Okay.
About the whole situation. This is what they said. They believed that the hostages at the time that he was in the building had already been killed. And in this article, they have said that, yes, the hostages were already killed by the time they were negotiating.
Oh, yeah. That'll confirm the phone call thing.
That'll explain the silence.
Yeah, I just
Yeah, that was the
something.
phone call. He said that he was making coffee and bacon and eggs for them and shit.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
I just remembered something from that time, if I can interject. I think the police believed that they would take heavy casualties if they tried to raid it, if they had tried to raid the building and rescue the hostages, which is interesting because during the Lint Cafe siege, which happened just a couple of years ago, if someone can tell me what years it was exactly, that'd be very helpful. But they tried. If they tried raiding the building, they'd take very heavy police casualties, meaning that they were willing to let a lot of civilians die. And I think that's a very interesting fact, considering that the police are meant to protect and serve, yet they're more concerned with their own than they are the civilian populace.
Yeah, that makes you awake at night, doesn't it?
It does. It honestly does, because it's, we had these people. I'm sure a lot of them are good people, and a lot of them may not have been around at the time of the Port Arthur shooting, but it still raises questions like, how many of these people were were they actually ready to go? Was it a false flag? Was it a true event? What happened there? And like with a lot of other events, I don't think we'll ever fully find out, because it's been so heavily politicized. Like, we're all pretty right wing. I think even if we got into power, we would still politicize it, and I think that's a real shame that we'd use anything and everything we have as a tool for some form of political deception.
Yeah, that's what most history is written as.
We've forgotten the greatest good for the greatest number.
Well, yeah, and if we can kind of transition into a different topic about our false flags, fags, and do-rags, I think if anything, that when we talk about subversion, we should probably move on to the fag side of things.
Before we do, though, I just want to say for all of us that we support the police 100%. They're great people. It's a bastard of a job, and they've got our complete backing.
Well, yeah, the police have some of the hardest jobs in the world nowadays. Like, I couldn't imagine being out there every day having to deal with some fucked up meth head trying to stab me with some fucking kind of needle or anything. I couldn't imagine that. And then you imagine the other cases they've been to, like domestic violence.
Yeah.
Like,
you never call a cop for a good reason.
Yeah, the cops aren't on our side, but they're still good people for the most part. And I think that no matter what we think of them, they still need our support, like our troopers. They're basic. Yeah, they're our civic army.
I just wanted to throw in, because Amy mentioned the idea of the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. And we've gotten to that point where we are appeasing, minorities at the expense of the majority, because we, as a society, have gotten apathetic enough and so tolerant to the point where we're letting minorities in our society basically try and play power politics and gain power over the majority.
Dictate what our values are as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's a collapse of Rome all over again.
Hey, Coop, you can go for a drink. I'm just going to chat about this for a little bit. In terms of, if you look at it, give me half a second to kind of remember where I was going with this. Just reading messages.
Very professional.
10 out of 10. I mean, like,
Maybe
I'm the
go
guy
on
hosting the
Patreon.
podcast, and like, you guys are having a brilliant discussion until I get involved, and I just come in
Yeah.
here and shit.
Send
all
Bob
over
and
it.
Virgin pics to get whole discussion.
I
Yeah,
just
look,
shat
guys
all
at
over it
home,
like a
I
fucking
know it's
true South
tough.
African.
Yeah, just edit yourself out.
But yeah, okay, I remember exactly where I was going now. So we've gotten to this point where the society is so like apathetic and tolerant, and Socrates kind of spoke about this idea where the last virtue of a dying society is tolerance, because tolerance is the sign that you're, you know, getting to the end, because you're when you become an overly tolerant society, then other societies around you will encroach and will, you know, overtake you, because
Take advantage of
yeah, exactly,
because you're weak.
yeah, it's
That's the problem. You
because-
you ignore what's important. You
Well-
ignore, like, for example, when we talk about, like, there's been a few perfect
Well,
examples, but
it
basically
goes
you
back
just
to that old idea of hard men create good societies create soft men create weak societies create hard men, and the cycle continues, if you know what I mean. Where
Yeah,
that through hardship, like you build the society and you develop it, and it gives you like goals and aspirations and like the will to strive and move forward. And once you've developed the society, you have so many like comforts and stuff that the only real like boundaries anymore are things that aren't in the best interest of your society. So people start pushing for those kind of things, and they become tolerant of things that are you know, adversely affecting the actual overarching society that you exist within. And that then leads to the decay of the society, and then hard times to those people, and they, you know, that from that then like reform the kind of culture within which they live. So
Well, you just need to deconstruct, well, not deconstruct, but just look at the definition for tolerate. I mean, the very concept of tolerating something is to put up with something that is either harmful or not ideal. So only a prosperous and well-off society can actually tolerate anything. If
And that's what I
times
want
are
us to do.
hard, yeah, because
Well,
we've
of
been
course,
softened up
because
by our luxuries.
you don't need to tolerate things that aren't a problem. Like
That's what they
doesn't
say.
require
We're so
tolerance.
privileged. We can tolerate some things that make us uncomfortable. You know, that's what they want us to think. But in that process, you become unable to determine morals and what's actually worth it. Worth and morals become the same thing,
And that's
and
what I've been
they become no difference.
I've been thinking about this quite a bit lately in terms of like ontological points of view. Like you know how there are a lot of people on the left who have the kind of view that everything is a social construct, kind of ignoring the idea of the positives of social construct and the precursive natural elements that then lead to the social construct being formed, and how it's replicated in nature and stuff. Like when you hear about feminists going on about like, you know, oh well, like, you know, like gender roles are just a social construct, fucking terrible shit, rah rah rah. It's you kind of ignore the fact that the language that they're using to actually communicate their frustration is actually a social construct, and it's, you know, a net benefit for the majority of people. It's a negative when feminists and ideologues get involved.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Well, the recording software that I'm using screwed up there, and I lost a good about 45 minutes of the recording at the end. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But I'm just gonna edit this in, and everyone said like their final parts, but we'll get a recap of that on the next show. I'm gonna close up with a bit of music, and enjoy. Thanks for listening, and also Dot. If you're out there, send Bob and Virgin, please.
Being alone in the woods prepared me for being alone, well, everywhere else.